may surprise some people, but Prince Harry is trapped. There's no two ways about it. Trapped, alone and confused. But worse than that, it's his own situation now that makes it even more, shall we say, cringy. As ever, let me explain. Morning, lovely to see you, chums. Thank you so much for joining me today. As ever, lovely to have your company. It's a funny thing, isn't it? You know, when you think about Harry and Meghan, when they, of course, got married, you know, there was no prenup. And as we know, Prince William very much said, take your foot off the gas, sit back, let's see where this goes. But Harry, as I've told you many times, just ploughed ahead. You know, my belief is this, and I think we've all had a friend like that, that they can't quite believe that they've suddenly got the girlfriend that they've got. You know, you know what I mean, fellas? You meet a guy, don't you? And they'll say, oh gosh, you know, you're going to meet my partner, she's brilliant. And you're thinking, goodness, you know, because you kind of know what's coming, you know what I mean? But as you're a friend, you sort of stick with it and think, wow, this has all been very heavily documented, of course, just how difficult Meghan was. She didn't really like the hunting, shooting, fishing life and wanted Harry virtually to dump his entire back catalogue of friends because they didn't fit in with her particular remit. Now, where this gets difficult, of course, when you are somebody like Prince Harry, everything comes literally done for you. You know, you're sorted where you live, where you travel, you know, your passport, anything that you may need when you meet these people. It's very heavily documented. And what people don't realise when you're a royal is just how organised your life is. You know, the year of your life is planned out. And I think what Harry was looking for when he met Meghan Markle was this sort of like, and I hate this word, but the freedom of the sort of strap down of what you're doing, you know, whether that be an army commitment, trooping of the colour, a premiere, something like that. Harry always wanted a little bit more and spoke openly about wanting a different life. But his life really that he wanted, and people forget this, was to do some conservation work, some charitable work out in Africa. That's where he felt very comfortable. His life in the army was a bit of an eye-opener, according to a well-placed source, because it was the first time, in fact, that he was treated as a normal person, one that had to make orders at the bar, you know, help cook food, that sort of stuff. And this may, you know, kind of shock you because everything else at that point, it's hard to imagine. But when you've been inside the royal palaces, you think, wow, a very different life. You know, even the Queen, as much as I love her, you know, every day somebody came along and suggested what might she like for dinner or indeed lunch. I mean, most of the things she'd already got in place after such a long reign. But, you know, consequently, you know, it was a different life. When Harry moved over into Montecito, literally, he relinquished everything. And by relinquished everything, I mean literally everything. You see, he'd been given a charitable sort of fund, quite a big level of money. And also people forget this, that for the very first year when they first went to Canada and then over to California, it was the money of His Majesty the King, King Charles, who was funding everything. You know, the idea that they could suddenly get a mortgage certainly didn't come from her. And many people suggest, of course, that that house that they're in isn't a mortgage. I can tell you that it is, but it's not in Harry's name. As ever, we have to say allegedly. There are various companies, charitable things, all attached to those particular things. Now, here's where this gets very frightening indeed, because as I said at the start of this video, and what's really emerging is now people are looking into their background, their Archwell Foundation, and exactly how things work on a monetary level. Well, Harry, you see, relinquished everything over to Meghan. She literally controls all the finances. So all the big deals, you know, came in that from Spotify, that came in, for instance, from, you know, Netflix or Penguin Random House. All the other things like Better Up, everything was dealt with through her. Now, Harry was more than happy to go along with this for the simple fact that he believed that she knew how this world operated. Now, as I said, you might think this is ridiculous. How would Harry not know how to deal with money? Well, he's never had a mortgage, he's never had a house problem, he's never had a car problem. Everything is taxed, done, presented, driving license, you name it. The army was a huge eye-opener for him because it gave him the opportunity to do something different. Of course, his late mother branched out and became independent herself, but even she had had a little taster of normal life life, even though she was a titled lady. Harry never had that. And so for now, basically, if you want to know where all the money is, well, there are two people that are looking after the money, according to a very well-placed source, and as ever, allegedly, and that is fundamentally Meghan Markle, assisted by her mother, Doria Ragland. They have companies, and really, Harry's more than thrilled, happy, delighted that somebody takes care of that side of life. Where does that leave them in the future? Well, it's a terrifying prospect, really, isn't it? Because although Harry will have signed those documentations, they will have been double signed, and consequently, whatever the future holds, and you know what I mean by that, chums, and it's looking very rocky right now for the way that it's all falling apart, quite frankly, well, it's going to be very difficult for Harry to unentwine himself from that. Of course, it's not really going to be a problem for him. He could return back to the bosom, if you like, of the royal family and live somewhere far away, quietly funded, out of the limelight. But either way, somebody's going to become an incredibly rich person. You know what I mean? Neil Sean in the very heart of Kensington.